What if Russia captures Ukrainian President Zelensky? As many of you know, Russia and Ukraine are currently not on the best of terms. That's because Russia has decided that invading Ukraine and capturing their territory seemed like a fun idea to them. Ukraine didn't find this idea nearly as fun, and frankly, neither did pretty much the entire rest of the world. Almost all of the world leaders that are part of NATO have publicly denounced the move and called Russia out for doing this. Russia is not backing down though, and they're pushing their forces deeper and deeper into Ukraine with the goal of capturing the entire country and making it their own. Right now, Russia has been shelling Kiev pretty hard and are trying to make a push into the capital city. If they take Kiev, one would imagine that Ukraine as a whole won't last too much longer. But so far they're holding out pretty well and doing better than a lot of experts expected. A large part of this is the leadership of President Zelensky. The former comedian and actor turned Ukrainian president has been leading his people through probably the hardest and most trying time of their lives. And because his leadership has been so solid, Russia isn't having the cakewalk victory that they probably expected. This is a tough-fought war up to this point, and even if they capture the entire country, they probably won't ever truly be able to own it due to the courage that Zelensky has instilled in the Ukrainian people. So clearly it's in Russia's best interest to capture President Zelensky. But what would happen if they did? How would they do it? How would Ukraine respond, and what would happen to Zelensky himself? In one of our previous videos, we talked about what would happen if Ukraine captured Putin. It was a really fun video and super interesting to break down, so go check it out if you haven't already. Now, the thing about that video is that it was very unlikely to actually happen. Right now, Ukraine is getting shelled hard by the Russians and are not in a place to be on the offensive. That's why in that video we were looking at potential elite task force units that the Ukrainians could send in, and we got a tad bit ridiculous. This video is a lot more realistic though. President Zelensky could very easily get captured. In fact, a lot of experts kind of expected that he already would be captured by this point. But what would happen if he actually did? Well, the first option, which is very bad for President Zelensky, is that he's killed. This is sadly a very real possibility and something that Zelensky has got to be well aware of. It's definitely not unheard of in the past for the nation that is invading another nation to kill said nation's leader upon capturing them. There are a couple reasons why Russia might want to do this. The first one is pretty simple, and it's just literally that Putin doesn't like him very much. Kinda sucks where we live in a world where these massive world leaders will potentially kill other people because they don't like them very much, but that is the sad reality. The second reason why Zelensky might be killed is that it would probably significantly weaken Ukraine. If Zelensky gets captured, for instance, and then Russia pushes in through Ukraine and ends up taking the rest of the country, well, how do you think the people would respond to that? The Ukrainian people are already heavily fighting back against the Russians, and I imagine that if they know their leader is alive and being held captive, they will want to keep going until Russia finally gives in. Now, this is a distinct possibility, but there's also another school of thought that we need to think about here. What if instead of deter the Ukrainian people, President Zelensky's death actually infuriates them more and makes them even harder to capture? This is also a stark possibility due to the nature of this war. The Ukrainian people feel as if they're being taken advantage of right now. That Russia is coming into their land and taking what rightfully belongs to the Ukrainian people. At the end of the day, Putin eventually wants to not only own this territory, but also own these people. Have them be okay with the fact that they are Russians now and grow to love their new country. That might not ever happen though if you come in and kill their leader as we're currently talking about. Regardless of whether you agree with his politics or how he's operated up till this point, I imagine almost all Ukrainian people would feel extremely pissed off if their leader got killed. So, if Zelensky was captured and killed, then there are two possibilities here. Either the Ukrainian people and their resistance slowly fall apart as they've lost their leader, or it just ramps up even further. At this point, it's very tough to say which one would actually happen. Now, coming at this question from a simply logistical standpoint, what would actually happen to the Ukrainian government if Zelensky was captured? Like, who would be in charge now? Well, insider writes Under the country's constitution, the Speaker or Chairperson of Ukraine's parliament, known as Verkhovna Rada, is next in line to succeed the president. That role is currently filled by Ruslan Stefanchuk, a former top aide to Zelensky who has been a pro-Western advocate. Ruslan has remained a visible public presence amid Russia's invasion, advocating for more international assistance and standing by Zelensky last week as the leader signed Ukraine's official application for membership in the European Union. But after Ruslan, it is unclear in the country's constitution as to who comes next. The document establishes the positions of First Deputy and Deputy Chairperson tasked with succeeding the Parliament Speaker, but they are not explicitly listed in line for the presidency. Meanwhile, when both Zelensky and Stefanchuk fell ill with COVID-19 in 2020, Ukrainian legal scholars posited that Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal would be on deck to take over, according to the Times. In an opinion essay for The Hill last month, a Ukrainian researcher at the nonprofit the RAND Corporation and William Courtney, a senior fellow at the nonprofit, suggested that the country's parliament would be wise to take steps to quickly validate a longer line of succession beyond Ruslan. That longer line in succession would probably be smart thinking, guys, because they are literally under attack right now. Either way though, if the current president is captured, then Ruslan will be the next in line to take over, and he'll have to lead the Ukrainian people. How successful he will be in this venture though is obviously anyone's guess. Now, the one thing we haven't looked at really at all here is whether it's even in Russia's best interest to capture Zelensky considering the circumstances. Well, here's the thing. It is very likely that whatever the Russians choose to do with regards to Zelensky will anger the Ukrainian people more. If they don't care about that, then capturing him is 100% in their best interest. If they do care about that though, then the ideal situation for Russia and for Putin is for them to capture the entire country and then have Zelensky publicly admit defeat and surrender the country. By having this happen, I imagine it would take some of the fight out of the Ukrainian people who oppose this new Russian rule, and they may choose to listen to their current leader in Zelensky. Even though this is the best case scenario for the Russians, it certainly isn't the best case scenario for NATO or any of the countries that oppose Russia. As far as they're concerned, they need Zelensky to stay uncaptured and for Ukraine to keep fighting. Also, I think it goes without saying, but it definitely isn't in President Zelensky's or Ukraine's best interest to get captured either. But please let me know in the comments down below, guys, what you think about this question. What is going to happen if Russia captures President Zelensky? I'd love to hear your opinions. Also, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your host, Nicholas Playlog, and I will catch you next time.